Alright, ladies and gentlemen, today is your Monday Night Raw review from May 11th, 2015 episode. Just to let you guys know, immediately following this video, I will be going ahead and doing the very first episode on this channel of Fantasy Wrestling Ideas. I'm not going to unleash or reveal the what the episode is going to be based on of my fantasy match, but you will get to know what that is in the upcoming moments after this video. So, getting into the actual Raw review here, the Raw episode last night, I would have to say was okay. It's a you could take it or leave it kind of episode, if you know what I mean. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. There was some good moments, there was some bad moments, there was some boredom, there was some, pretty much, it had some good points, it had some really bad points. But, as I go through the entire episode, we will definitely find the good and bad points of this episode, and at that point, I will give you my overall outlook on this episode. Anyway, starting things off, we came about with Triple H finally showing up on Raw. He's been gone for several weeks. Hasn't appeared on Raw very much or on SmackDown either. He once in a while appears on SmackDown, but SmackDown's not a big deal with the WWE anyway. So, Triple H goes about talking about how he feels that the bickering and arguing between Kane and Seth Rollins is becoming a little bit irritating and dumb at this point. They seem like children, which I totally agree with on that factor. But, you know, Kane is, as you've seen the storylines, you know, reveal itself, it just seems like, you know, Seth Rollins is just a little whiny bitch champion who's been getting everything his way, been doing dirty tactics, but yeah, it's expected. He is the bad guy in all this. But, you know, it gets a little boring after a while of being a runaway champion and not being a defending champion. So at this point, it's understandable what they're doing. It makes a little bit logical sense for Kane to finally get fed up of Seth Rollins at this point. So, getting into things, he gets Kane and Seth Rollins to come out. He tells Kane if he doesn't stop doing this to Seth Rollins, he's thinking about getting him out of the Authority completely and no longer using him as part of the group. Seth Rollins, on the other hand, he gets on his case as well, stating he's being an arrogant punk and things of that sort. But he is the reigning, defending WWE champion, as well as the future and face of the company at this point. In this storyline, you can see quite a bit of a little bit of a defunk within the Authority. They seem pretty much a little out of sorts. Maybe a sign that the Authority might be disbanding or something like that of that nature. Which I think at this time, they've been around for over 2 years now. I think it's about time for it's time for it to come to an end, I believe, and move on with something new and fresh. But anyway, get that, the two little midgets, J&J Security, they are placed in a match with Dean Ambrose, which brings us to our very first match. Dean Ambrose has a stellar audience behind him. The audience was very into this match. I think it was an okay match. I mean, nothing too special to talk about, but it was pretty entertaining, and the audience was very into it, mainly because of the fact they were in Cincinnati, Ohio, where Dean Ambrose comes from. So Dean Ambrose did a very decent job in this match, and can't complain too much in this scenario here. Now, moving into the other matches that were on this card, we had King Barrett, or Bad News Barrett, I think would be better to say, but whatever, who cares. He actually faces Dolph Ziggler in a pretty decent match. only issue is I have with this is that Sheamus interfered, which has been going on for the past several weeks, last month I would say. About four weeks now he's been interfering in Dolph Ziggler's matches, but it's been pretty even as well. Dolph Ziggler's been interfering in his matches too. So, Bad News Barrett, he walks away with the win, with the interference from Sheamus. Dolph Ziggler was trying to kick him in the face, Sheamus in the face, and Sheamus ducked. King Barrett, as Dolph Ziggler turned around, hit him with the bull hammer and got the 1, 2, 3. Not too bad of a match. Didn't like the interference, as I've just said, but still overall decent match. The next thing that was involved was Eric Rowan versus Fandango. Fandango losing to Eric Rowan, and this match was extremely short, only 35 seconds. And overall, I think at this point, with Eric Rowan and Luke Harper, made no fucking sense bringing them back together and in the first place separating them. What was the whole point in separating them in the first place? For them to get back together? Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. This is one storyline that they're building on that I think is absolutely retarded. They should have just never separated the two, kept them as a tag team. Even, I personally think they should have never separated the Wyatt family, period. I believe they were a good group together. They had some pretty good feud going on with the Shield. And they could have done things with this Wyatt family, band, or, faction that they had going. I personally think it would have been more meaningful to have, the Wyatt family tag team of Luke Harper and Eric Rowan become tag team champions at least once from last year. It doesn't really make any sense to me at all. It just really is abnormal, is all I'm trying to say with all this talk about this whole situation. But personally, do I think that they should have ever separated them? And am I happy they're back together? Yeah, I'm kind of happy they're back together, but they're not that great of wrestlers in my opinion. They're kind of slow. Luke Harper is a better wrestler than Eric Rowan out of the two, though, I have to say. He fights a little more like JBL in my opinion. So that's just my overall look on the whole scenario, what they're building up between Luke Harper and Eric Rowan. And Fandango, he's doing nothing. Once again, all he keeps doing is losing, and losing to nobodies on top of that. The next match is the United States Championship. Now, this match may have ended in a DQ. John Cena and Adrian Neville had an outstanding match. It was the match of the night. Very entertaining moves that went on in this. A lot of grit and determination between the two competitors. Very entertaining action that went on from beginning to the end. Despite the fact that Rusev interfered in this match, I truly think that this match should reoccur again and they should have a rematch after Payback. I highly do not see or believe or feel that John Cena should lose this United States title against Rusev now at this point. Mainly because of the fact of this specific match. I think this match with John Cena and Neville would be an outstanding match to place on the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view this coming month, in this month, on May 31st, which was announced on the Monday Night Raw episode, if you haven't seen this episode at all. So, personally, I think that would be an outstanding idea to have a rematch between these two because of the interference of Rusev. I think this leaves the opportunity for this type of match to be wide open for them. So, moving on with the episode, they definitely had a very disappointing segment that I was upset with, and that was the Daniel Bryan situation. Now, do I want Daniel Bryan to wrestle with an injury? Absolutely not. I want the man to be healthy. I want him to be able to perform in the ring, do what he does best, and that's being a wrestler. He is really the most outstanding wrestler I've seen in many, many years. And he has the skills, he brings out professional wrestling. He's what they say is a professional wrestler. He's not just an entertainer, he is a wrestler. He knows how to work in the ring. He's a technician artist. And that's what makes him so exciting to watch. That's why he's able to help elevate any wrestler he's in the ring with to make the matches great. It's his technician. I can name off plenty of other wrestlers just like him that's done the same thing. Bret Hart, Kurt Angle, still to this day, Kurt Angle, despite the fact he's in one of the worst wrestling organizations in the world right now, TNA, Kurt Angle I personally feel is doing an outstanding job of what he's got to work with such a crappy company. The only reason that drags my attention to TNA is one of the reasons is Kurt Angle. So definitely Kurt Angle's another great technician wrestler. Whether or not you guys like this man or not, and he had a horrible incident happen at the end of his life. That was Chris Benoit. Great, he was a great technician wrestler, but yes, the end of his life was a very tragic and horrible thing that he did to his family and to himself. And I truly think that, though, despite all of that, as a wrestler himself, he was outstanding. He was a great technician wrestler, put on 5-star matches, and all that. Shawn Michaels, he's on a different pedestal, in my opinion. He's not a technician wrestler. He can put on a good performance, and he's a great entertainer. But he's not the greatest technician wrestler, I would believe, in the history of wrestling. So, not to get too caught up into this and make this whole video about Daniel Bryan and the technician wrestling and all that, despite the horrible thing here in this situation is he once again has to relinquish a championship he worked his ass off for. He went ahead, performed a decent match at the WrestleMania 31 opening match of the ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship, and performed very decently. I mean, you had a lot of other guys involved in this match, so it couldn't be all based on Daniel Bryan and all focused on him. So, I mean, of course it's just going to be a decent and okay match for him, because it's surrounded with other wrestlers in this situation, so there's a lot of other spots that you're going to want to pay attention to as well. But the man had a great title defense against Dolph Ziggler the next night. Awesome match. I wish that this match would have continued on throughout the summer like they were planning on doing before they were going to have a unification match between John Cena and Daniel Bryan, which was the original idea they were thinking about doing. That might change. I don't know if they might unify the titles at SummerSlam, or they just might keep them separate and have 2 mid-card championship belts. I personally think they should, just to make things a little bit more interesting, give people more championship matches than just one mid-card, one major heavyweight title, and a tag team title match, and the Divas title matches. So I definitely think they should keep them separate, not tie them and unify them together. But very sad thing that Daniel Bryan had to lose this belt, and on top of it, he may lose his career on top of all this. That's the worst thing about all of this. He may actually lose his entire career over this surgery done on his neck that's not healing properly. He's still having issues with it. He's still losing feeling in his arm. His neck is still messed up. And he's going to physical therapy every single day practically, from what he said from last night's promo. And it's very tragic, but, I mean, not like so tragic like he's dying or something, thank God. But they ended this was his last moment as a wrestler, as a performer, this was the best way to go out with him. He went out with class. He went out looking like a man who wasn't having an ego problem. He wasn't looking like an asshole. He was looking like a class act wrestler who cared about the business, cared about what he does for a living, and that is what a real professional does in his what he does for his craft. And I gotta give a lot of props to Daniel Bryan. This might be his last time he ever was to step foot in a ring as a wrestler, and if so, hopefully WWE puts him in a situation within the company. I would like to see him on screen and see him do something different, like a manager, a general manager, something like that. I think that would be very intriguing. But as everyone knows, they want to see him as a wrestler. That's the truth. And I totally agree with that, but you can't have the man wrestle with severe injuries. And right now, with the kind of injury he has, it is pretty severe. Not something you want him to mess around with. But anyway, getting off of that whole entire topic, because I know it was pretty long, we'll move more into the matches and some of the other promos that did occur on Monday Night Raw. The next match after the United States Championship match was a Divas match. Didn't really matter. Tamina Snuka, what is up with this broad? She's always being a bodyguard or being behind another female wrestler. When the hell is she ever going to be her own self? When is she going to be able to compete for a Divas title match? She seems to be more of a badass and an intimidating female wrestler than most of the other female wrestlers involved in the business today, and yet she sits behind Naomi? Like, what the fuck? This is the same thing with AJ Lee. Like, this makes no fucking sense. At this point, now that she established herself with AJ Lee, why has she got to be a bodyguard for another female wrestler? Makes no sense to me. I think she'd be a lot better on her own and not tied with another female wrestler in the company. But yet, Tamina Snuka defeats Brie Bella. Not too surprising whatsoever. The next match that we get is Curtis Axel versus Damien Sandow. Nothing really big here. I mean, these two, they have a little BS thing going on between the two of them backstage during the pre-show. So, I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal. Damien Sandow turns into Macho Man Randy Savage, and he turns it into Macho Man Dow. I think that's fucking ridiculous. And versus Axelmania, they're acting as the Mega Powers, and they fight up against the Ascension, which turns the match into a no contest. And that's the end result of the match. They beat the crap out of the Ascension. JBL was very funny in some of the moments into this match. And pretty hilarious stuff and comments coming from JBL. Very funny and entertaining stuff. But match itself was crap. I don't know where they're going with Damien Sandow. Once again, they got this poor guy in limbo, doing absolutely nothing important, just making a big giant goofball of himself and making him look like an ass. Anyway, getting on to a little bit of commentary on this episode about JBL, Michael Cole, and Booker T. Michael Cole, I have to say, is by far probably the worst announcer I have ever heard in WWE history. He is the worst. He made Max Striker look great. And I wasn't a big fan of Matt Striker's announcing back then. I've heard his announcing now in Luchador Underground. He's gotten better. But when he was in WWE in that 2010 to I think 2011 stint of being a commentator, he was horrible. And Michael Cole makes him look better. Here's a prime example. He's telling the audience, go ahead and watch the WWE pay-per-view paperback between John Cena and Rusev in the I Quit match for the United States title. Then he corrects himself and says the Payback pay-per-view. Like, what the fuck? How do you mess up saying payback? Well, why would you say paperback? You're not talking about a fucking A book? I mean, you're not talking about some fucking book, for God's sakes. What the hell is wrong with you, man? I mean, ever since this guy has gotten the main run of being the lead commentator within WWE, he has become this big fucking dumbass who can't talk worth a shit. Another prime example, during WrestleMania, they're leading into WrestleMania, and he tells the time that it would be for people to tune in for the pay-per-view, and he says at 8 p.m. It's a 4-hour show! What the hell's wrong with you? This ain't back in 2001 or something, like WrestleMania 17. They added the 4-hour WrestleMania for 17 from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. in the morning. They don't do that anymore because people can't stay up till that time, probably because they have to go to school or work or what have you, so they moved it to 7. What the fuck is wrong with this guy? He can't talk for shit. He overdoes everything. His acting is absolutely horrible, and I just really wish somebody would replace him already. He is just garbage. He used to be great on SmackDown. I didn't have problems with him when he was an announcer on SmackDown with Taz and JBL at the time when they had the brand split. But ever since he got on Raw and he became the big mouthpiece for WWE, he has been absolute shit. I can't stomach the guy. But anyway, moving into the rest of this episode, because we're almost done, we had Cesaro facing Big E Langston in a really decent match, not too shabby. Cesaro displayed some very good strength quality. He had a hard time lifting Big E Langston with a belly-to-belly suplex after he did a couple of German suplexes. And he hoisted this guy up over his head and finally threw him with no help of Big E Langston at all giving him any help to doing this maneuver. And I have to say, this guy is one strong mofo of a wrestler, and he don't do steroids. I know that for a fact. He don't look like it. He don't look at all a guy that takes steroids. Bottom line. I might be wrong, but I highly doubt it in this situation with Cesaro. He looks like a clean-cut guy, doesn't seem to do any kind of steroids or anything like that. And very impressive match. Some decent segments in this match. And I have to say it was a very entertaining and enjoyable and fun match to watch. The next match, and Bray Wyatt's promo. God almighty, I'm going to finally stop sugarcoating things about Bray Wyatt. I've come to one conclusion. One, the guy is a fucking retard. He keeps repeating himself week after week after week after week after week about the same old shit. He's the face of fear. He's the face of my ass. That's what he is. The face of my fucking ass. Yeah, that's no lie. I have a hairy ass. Sorry. Anyway, yes. He is the absolute joke. He's an absolute fucking joke, this guy. He comes up with the same fucking promos. He has a match with one of the greatest WrestleMania opponents in the history of WWE. And he pulls off, in my opinion, if you don't believe me, rewatch that Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt match. The fans were not even interested. They weren't cheering. They weren't getting all hyped up over it. A few moments here or there, they were, getting excited. But Bray Wyatt's matches in the last 2 years at a WrestleMania pay-per-view, which is supposed to be considered to be the best match you're supposed to have of your career, is the WrestleMania matches, and you can't get an audience reaction out of it, there's something severely going wrong with your fucking career and what you do in the ring. Not to mention your promos. Yeah, from time to time, they're pretty interesting and, make you think, man, the guy's crazy, but he's very funny, and or he's, creative with what he talks about. But in the last couple of months, I've just gotten so sick and tired of this guy. It's just the same old run-on shit. Now he's Target Ryback. Okay, his reason is he's in his way? Huh? Why would he be in your way? What, he busted his ankle real bad a couple of years back, came back from the injury, and improved on his, and got back into professional wrestling. What the fuck is going on here? This guy's a joke. Ryback afterwards came out and attacked Bray Wyatt in a very decent fashion. I'm really starting to get behind Ryback. I think that he might eventually move into something in the company, like, maybe a mid-card title run, possibly, or even maybe later down the road in the next couple of years, be in a main event world title match, which I think should be in his future. He has the look, he has the build, he's what everything Vince McMahon wants in a WWE superstar. Let's just put it at that. But anyway, so the promo, bottom line, I'm getting sick and tired of Bray Wyatt's promos. I think it's getting redundant and sickening. I'm really just fed up with it. Anyway, the last match, which wasn't all that interesting, Randy Orton and Seth Rollins. There's not much to say about this match. It was a 15-minute match. Randy Orton wins by disqualification because of interference on the outside of the ring with the J&J security. And then you get Roman Reigns and Randy Orton to work together to beat up J&J security. And then Dean Ambrose comes out and joins in on the fun. And they all corner Seth Rollins. I believe, Randy Orton hits the RKO on Seth Rollins. Roman Reigns hits the spear. And Dean Ambrose hits his double arm DDT, Dirty Deeds move on Roman Reigns. And ends up being the last man standing out of this scenario. Bottom line, it very much looks like Dean Ambrose is going to be walking away at Payback with the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. But there has been many occasions where a superstar looks like they have the advantage going into a pay-per-view and then does not even win the title. I'll give you a couple examples. 2 examples with Booker T, once against JBL for the WWE Championship at 2004 Survivor Series, and the other time with Triple H leading into WrestleMania 19. He had a tremendous momentum going into both of these pay-per-views for the WWE title and the World Championship, and losing both times. Another prime example, we had, trying to think here of some other matches. John Cena a couple of times against Edge. The one match that they had at SummerSlam of 2006, John Cena looked like he had some sort of momentum going into this match. He ends up losing that match as well. Randy Orton, another prime example. Randy Orton was kicking Seth Rollins' ass leading into Extreme Rules, looking like he was going to be walking away the champion, and he ends up losing to his own move, with Seth Rollins crawling out of the ring like a little bitch. So, with all that being said, more than likely, I'm going to stick. This is just one of my Payback preview predictions on the main event. I have to say Seth Rollins more than likely will be walking out the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. And to give you an overall status or look on how this ended up, in my opinion, I think it was overall the whole show, I'd say it was a 2.5 out of 5. Not too bad, but not that great either, as I just said earlier in this episode, this review. So, it was a pleasure talking to you guys. Let me know your opinions and leave any comments that you might want to say about what you guys thought about this episode. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And thank you very much again to you guys for watching this episode for the Raw review. And I appreciate your time. And coming up next, after I've uploaded this Raw review, will be the first episode of Fantasy Wrestling Ideas. Thank you very much again, guys. You have a great night. Catch you in a few moments. Bye.